What's up, boys? We're back coming at you with another special episode today.
And this one is special, but it hurts at the
it's
same
a
time.
painful one.
And like the title says, my games got stolen. So today we're going to talk about our games going missing. And not so much, I don't think in Dan's house this has happened, but this has happened in my house quite a few times. My family and us all know the culprit, but we never caught him. But I can say it's one of my siblings. And Dan, getting out of that high school era, we just jumped into retro video game collecting, retro toy collecting, retro board game collecting, a bunch of stuff. And I remember in my room I had two bookshelves. I had a bookshelf full of my Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis games. And I had a bookshelf with all my DVDs I loved and my N64 games. But like most collectors over the years, we get complacent with our collection. And we always look at it, but we don't really pay attention to it anymore. And I remember one day coming home from work and just flopping on my bed. And I remember turning my head and looking at my collection on this shelf and going, I looked at my Genesis games, I looked at my Super Nintendo games, I looked at my movie. I still remember my movie setup. It was all my Dragon Ball Z seasons, and I had the Alien movies and everything like that. And then I went down the shelf, and I had about not a crazy collection, about 80 N64 games, I would say.
It's pretty good.
And I was looking at them, and I was like, "Wait, that's weird."
Looks awfully thin.
No, I was like, not awfully thin, but at first I was like, "Huh." Majora's Mask is missing.
You were looking for that gold, right?
Yeah, because the gold cartridge was gone, and I immediately got off my bed and I'm like, this is not a fucking joke. And I went there and I looked and I started ripping the games off the shelves and I'm like, Majora's Mask is missing. Super Mario is missing. Mario Party 1, Mario Party 2,
all the
Mario Party 3, GoldenEye, Perfect Dark. You're
going through all your stuff. All you have left is like Quarterback Club 98, Lego Racer. What's that?
Basically, all the games that were worth something that people want were gone. And at that point, basically, it felt like the blood had drained from my head all the way to my toes, and my body went numb. And I remember running downstairs, and this must have been when I was about 17 or 18.
Yeah.
And I remember running downstairs, and I just lost it. And I was like, where the fuck is my games? Bring my fucking games back right now. And obviously, my brothers were like, oh, we don't know where they went. They don't know where they went. And obviously, I know what happened to them. But we couldn't blame anyone because we never saw anyone take them, right? So I remember going right upstairs, going on the internet and looking up all my games to try to reacquire them. I'm a collector. And at that point, it hit me that, buddy, I'm not going to get these games back because when we were collecting, we didn't pay scalper prices.
No.
We like to call it, we went picking. We went in the trenches and we went garage selling, we went pawn shop, we went thrift stores after thrift stores, and it was like a daily occurrence, and we would hit 5 or 6 a day, and we were grinding to find these games for a cheap price because we were never going to sell them. They were going to sit on our shelves and be loved. And that's the part that hurt the most, because that's the part that when I realized, once I looked at the prices and I wasn't going to get these fucking games back, that I stopped retro video game collecting.
Yeah, it's just so defeating.
Yeah, so I completely stopped. And I've had games go missing over the years, just like a lot of people in my household at the time had stuff. We just did an episode about my Dreamcast, acquiring my first Dreamcast. I traded Knockout Kings 2002 for it. A few months later, I came home, my Dreamcast was gone. I remember also around that time I met a friend and he gave me NES with about 40 games. And again, a few weeks later they went missing. But the problem is that didn't hurt as bad because the Xbox had come out, I had the new system. And again, I was about 11 or 13 years old. It didn't affect me as much, but this really put an impact on me because when I think back to those times, obviously I still get kind of mad that my games went missing, but on the flip side, those were the best times of our friendship and hanging out when we were grinding, finding games. We're in the back, we were driving, laughing, listening to music, getting food, and just enjoying stuff. So there's always a funny flip side to it that you remember. But yeah, that's what really killed collecting games for me, and I just stopped collecting games and toys and stuff like that after that moment, because there was no way I was going to be able to go to these stores anymore and find them, because retro video game collecting at that time was at an all-time high from guys like Angry Video Game Nerd, who really pushed it.
And he's very influential on us too.
Yeah, that got a lot of people collecting games. But Dan, on your flip side, did you ever have games go missing?
Not to the same extent, because God, fuck, like I can I'm mad for you just thinking about the idea of having my collection, having somebody skim through, pick out all the best stuff and sell it. Like, that's just so painful. And deliberate too, right? That's what makes it worse. I do have an experience that I think you kind of are somewhat familiar with, the losing 64 games.
I do know this.
One day, Chris messaged me. I was at home and said, "Hey, I'm at Jackie's place. This is just one of his old girl. Well, I shouldn't drop names. Like, sorry, my bad.
That's okay.
At his old girlfriend's house, and do you got any N64 games I can borrow and play for the day or whatever?" I'm like, "Yeah, fuck yeah, you can play all my N64 games." I think I gave you fucking everything. A whole stack of Mario Kart, all kinds of shit, right? And anything that you can play two-player, I think I pretty much lent out to you guys, right? And don't get me wrong, I'm not blaming Chris for this, because I was friends with his old girlfriend too, so I looked at it like I was letting it to her. It was going to her house to be played on her N64, right?
Yeah, and they lived down the street.
Yeah, like right down the street from me. Oh man, yeah, I never.
Here's the tale of the story so far. Don't get complacent with your collection. Always check it all the time, and don't ever lend your video games out.
Yeah. I mean, no, this saying. I know Chris was gonna take care of my stuff. Unfortunately, the ex wasn't gonna take care of my stuff to the same extent. So we figured maybe her older brother maybe sold them or something like that, or something along those lines. But over the years, this isn't something I'm very crusty about, because I've reacquired almost all these games. You reacquired a bunch of these games for me because Chris felt so fucking guilty about it, even though it wasn't really his fault. Chris felt so guilty about it. You reacquired a bunch of those games for me. I think you got me Smash Bros. I think you got me...
that was one of the games that was stolen from me. My original Ocarina of Time. So much things just go missing. And a funny part of this too, that it's totally different from video games, but this is how bad it got in my household. And at this point, I was like in my early 20s, and I'd gotten a new job. I was making a lot more money, and I was working with somebody at the time. Weed wasn't legalized in Canada, but he was growing his own stuff, and he was like, "Chris, I'm growing my own stuff. Do you want to try some?" And you know me, I'm not really a big weed smoker, whatever. But I'm like, "Yo, let me support you." So I gave him $20. He gave me 4 grams, which is a good deal.
Yeah.
And the first day I went, smoked it, or I walked around, smoked some, but I had a bunch left in a bag. Like I was saying in the beginning of the story on my bookshelf, I had my Dragon Ball Z DVDs. I had put the weed in a bag behind the DVDs. I came back a day later, and I was like, let me go smoke the weed and go take a walk. Believe it or not, dude, I pull back the DVDs. My pipe is in the bag. All the weed's gone.
In a day.
All the weed is gone. So when I was going to work, the son of a bitch...
on a daily basis?
...was going and snooping through my room. And the problem with that is, like you said, my ex at the time, like I had sex toys, whatever. Like it's like this guy's snooping through my fucking room. This is how bad it was. At that point, I had enough. And I know you guys are probably like, why didn't you just beat him up? But the problem is, like,
what can you do, right?
I can't. We don't know. Like, we know we've taken it, but we can't prove it.
Yeah.
And at that point, it's the saddest part ever. I'm 21, and I had to go buy a lock and key for my bedroom. So I went out, bought a new door handle, and I had to lock the door every time I would leave the house to go to work. That's how bad it got. And what's even worse about that story is we always did the grind to collect the games, to never get rid of it, and just everything going missing. I ended up selling my Sega Genesis collection.
Right.
And I know people, I ended up selling it because I ended up buying a 97 Ford Probe GT and I needed some work done on it. So I'm like, I'm done collecting, so let me sell this. I know people are probably gonna be like, oh, that's not a good car to sell your gen. I fucking love my 97 Ford Probe GT, so it was worth it in the end. But I just wonder sometimes if my games didn't get stolen, like what would my collection
Right.
have looked like to this day? I still have my Super NES that will never go anywhere. But we just wanted to come here today and share some funny stories about our games going missing. And obviously, I had worse luck than Dan had. But guys, for anyone who had their game stolen or you sold your collection, put it below, and we'd love to read about it. And we'll see you next week for another episode.
Absolutely. Until next time, boys.